Welcome back to the Pop Chart, a podcast discussing everything at the top of our charts in pop culture this week. Pause.
What?
Yep, we're gonna do something a little bit different. Okay, I'm gonna stand on the shoulders of giants. So one of my all-time, my favorite podcaster of all time, David Chen, used to host a show called Cast of Kings with Joanna Robinson. They would start off every show giving you kind of some context about the hosts, right? In reviewing Game of Thrones, David Chen had never read any of the books, and Joanna Robinson had watched all of the books. And I think that's important context in our discussion of the next 3 episodes of Ahsoka. So if you would humor me, we're gonna do something here. So follow my lead.
Okay.
My name is Ezequiel Gutierrez, and I have seen all of Clone Wars and Rebels.
Oh, and I am Brendan Toda, and I've not seen all of Clone Wars and Rebels. Only some of it.
So there you go. There's some context, because I think it's important that we are watching this show from very different viewpoints.
Well, first of all, what are we talking about today? Welcome to the Pop Chart. We're going to cover...
You guys, we're talking about Ahsoka.
Ahsoka.
We're back talking about Ahsoka.
Yeah, episodes 4 through 6.
Yes.
Full-on spoiler talk tonight. Or today.
That's it.
Or whenever you're listening to this. In the morning. Who knows? Who cares?
Yeah. So we're going to talk about and spoil everything of the last 3 episodes. The most recent one aired last night for us. So we're here 24 hours later talking about it. I know we just recently talked about it, but
I mean, that's what the show's all about.
We're revisiting it this quickly. So, but I think it's important that people know, not people know, but like there is context here that you'll be able to draw from, that I'll be able to draw from.
Right.
I'm going to try and not make it like, or at least try to not be the guy who's like, well, if you'd only have seen it, you'd be enjoying this more, because I feel like you are enjoying this show just as much as I am, and you don't have the kind of history that these characters have. And to me, I don't care where you're coming from. I think if you're liking a Star Wars thing, then we're in good shape. We're in good shape.
It's not like you're not watching the show properly with the right context and the experience that you need with all of the other things Star Wars related in order to enjoy this.
Precisely. I will just be...
I know this is a dated reference that people may not get, but that's me being old.
for reference to our audio only listeners, Brendan was lousy with air quotes.
Lousy with rest in peace, Chris Farley. So for sure, I'm really looking forward to diving right into it. So with for the purpose of not going completely incoherent tonight, we'll break it down episode by episode, starting with the one that was furthest back, episode 4, Fallen Jedi. Now, as we were just discussing prior to the start of recording, episode 4, Fallen Jedi, follows Ahsoka and Sabine as they team up, basically, for the first time since Sabine has decided, you know what, let's gonna go ahead and follow this old former Jedi on her things, and let's see if we can't find a way to Ezra, if I'm not mistaken. And that's where their path leads them directly into trouble, I would say, right?
Directly into trouble. Yeah, and it's interesting because I know it's been 3 weeks since this episode aired, and because the last 2 episodes have been so incredibly significant to the story, there might be some facts I'm blurring between 3 and 4, but this is when we're getting like that old relationship is kind of coming back. There's a little bit of a spark here. She calls her, she continues to call her Padawan during this time, and again, this is not a relationship, like at least the master apprentice thing wasn't really covered in Rebels. Sabine got some Jedi training more from Ezra and from Kanan Jarrus, especially when she was like trying to wield the Darksaber, because she is Mandalorian, she is of the of that Kree. So she has some experience there, but it never really came from Ahsoka. So that's some fun stuff. I hope that we'll continue to like look back and explore their time together. But I like seeing them get along. I mean, it's
Yeah.
always nice when everyone is getting along.
Wouldn't it be nice? What a nice show with no conflict or anything. Just we all get along.
Right.
Can we just be Jedi and Mandalorian together? Is that cool?
But this is like the first episode where like, okay, some choreography, lightsaber choreography.
Mhm.
You've got that nice blend of like Jedi and Mandalorian
Right.
action happening again, and some of those moves are like, when you like when you're playing a video game and you're like, it's a two-person thing and you're like doing these moves, these quick time events, and you're just
Yeah.
like, God, that's so beautiful. Like,
Hmm.
I got you and pulled you over here, and the other person turned around and clocked you, and you're like, teamwork. It's there. And you're like,
Friendship,
and there, yeah,
teamwork.
there is a shorthand that they have, and it's clear that they've worked together in the past, and
Right.
that's like very present here.
Storytelling through action is what I think you're really touching on, right?
Yeah.
Like you get the sense of history just from the way that they move in sync with each other. Um, you know, just the complementary power sets, the different ways that they approach and tackle a problem together as opposed to doing it alone. Like, oh man, so good. So good. Team up, Mandalorian and Jedi.
And speaking of Mandalorian and Jedi,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a couple of characters, at least one character crosses over from the Mando times.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but is Carson Teva becoming like the Agent Coulson of the
Yes.
Filoniverse?
Yeah, I
Because
think he
if
is.
that's the case, I don't really like where this is going because I
That's
like
true.
this guy.
That's
He's
true.
like the only Asian dude in all of the Star Wars galaxy. I want him to survive. Now,
Yeah.
granted, Sabine is like, some kind of Asian, which, again,
Yeah.
makes no sense in the galaxy far away. But you know what? Whatever. We're not going to get too much into that. But yeah, I just love Carson Teva and his no nonsense by the book rebellion, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
even within the organization of the rebels. He's just the perfect kind of fun, funny, entertaining character and happens to be, an Asian brother. So
Love it.
love
Representation
it.
matters, folks.
Absolutely it does.
Now he's teaming up with his group with Hera, and they're setting
Harrison
off.
Dula.
Yep, Harrison
Mm-hmm.
Dula. And you get that, we've talked about her balancing like her political
Mm-hmm.
skill set versus her like leader. This is her being straight up like leader,
Yeah.
right?
Hera
She's just like,
woke up
let's
on
go.
Thursday and chose violence.
She sure did.
She's like, all right, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I'm just gonna go. Is that
Yeah.
cool? Oh,
And
it's not cool? I
I
don't
raise
care.
you absolutely no thanks. I'm not interested. So
Listen,
she's got a target on her back because she's going
yeah,
against the will of the New Republic. And
right.
she's like, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't agree with that. I'm not
Hmm.
asking for permission. I'll ask for
Hmm.
forgiveness later, kind of thing. And that's
Yeah.
like straight up Harrison Dula. Like
Hmm.
from the get, all of Rebels, she's, she is the leader of that group that is at the focus of Rebels, and so she has to kind of be mom to all these characters. Um and in some cases she's very much this. She's just like,
Yeah.
screw it, let's go.
Hmm.
And then sometimes she's got to be a little bit like more cautious because some of those decisions that they all collectively make, or some of them make and they choose to follow because they trust each other that much, does absolutely get them into trouble a lot,
Hmm.
actually.
Hmm.
So it's fun to see, that she hasn't changed too much.
Right.
She's like, screw it, let's go. And she's, what an example she's setting for like her son.
Look, not only her son, but I feel like my son and all the little kids are gonna watch Star Wars later. Like, it's not so spoon-fed, if you would take my
Hmm.
meaning. Like, this is telling kids, like, when you know something is right, then you have to trust your gut and do what you feel is best, even if the people telling you no are the quote unquote good guys.
Yeah.
Trust your instinct. But man, listen, can I just say there's something that is just, for lack of a better word, maybe magical about seeing a fleet of carriers along flanked by X-wings and the sounds and the sights of that, of just like, we're gonna go off into the utter blackness of space and let's go. This sort
Mm-hmm.
of like, it feels so adventurous. It fills me with excitement, and it's just like all they're doing is just taking off in the direction that they chose to go in. But man, I must have watched that scene like 4 or 5 times, and I'm getting like all emotionally invested every time, even though I
Mm-hmm.
know what's on the other side. So there's
It's just
something
that
about
sense of like awe and like what could possibly happen.
right,
We have just there's so many opportunities for so many interesting things to happen, and I think boy oh boy do episodes 5 and 6 absolutely deliver on that.
right,
But
right.
I'm with you, like you hear that sound of the X-wing, it's flanking the Ghost, and you're just like, this is awesome.
Yeah,
Let's go.
yeah, yeah.
We get a few X-wing dogfights. We've got some really interesting vehicle designs
Hmm.
um in Balin Skull and what Shin Hati?
Shin Hati, I believe, is
Yeah,
his apprentice
his
name.
apprentice.
Yeah.
They're like right out of like World War II
Hmm.
aircraft design. And if there's nothing else I love about Star Wars, the one thing I would say is like just vehicle design in general is like one of my absolute favorite things about Star
Absolutely.
Wars, and they deliver here in spades. I'm just like, yes, this is so rad because
Yeah.
so much of the imagery of Star Wars is taken from that World War II time
Hmm.
frame. And so then to have vehicles that are just like, that's literally like a P-51 Mustang in space. And you're just
Right,
like,
right, right.
I'm for it. I'm for it. I don't know if people might say it's lazy. No, I think that's
No, I
still
mean,
more of like drawing from inspiration of real world inspiration.
for sure. I mean, like my nephew astutely pointed out when he saw all of my collection of Star Wars toys, he was just like, "There's a lot of vehicles in Star Wars, isn't there, Uncle B?" I'm like, "Yep, yes, there is,
Yeah.
Cubby. There's a lot of vehicles."
Yeah.
And to that same point, it kind of like again reflects the character of each one of them, where it takes on its own personality. And one of the things that crossed my mind when watching, especially episode 4, is that um you could take a random frame from any point in this episode, and based off of say the setting or the vehicles or even like the markings on the rocks, you might be able to tell immediately that that's a Star Wars thing, which I think is really a testament to the production design for this
Hmm.
show. That like every single frame just seems like it belongs in Star Wars, and I love that about the show. That being said, the vehicle that they use to travel across the galaxy definitely giving me Halo vibes. This is a giant ring in space that
Yeah.
like has superpowers. I kind of half expected Master Chief to show up, if you take my meaning, you know.
And you know what? Again, this is like building off of what came before, right? So we have seen these light speed, what
Yeah,
are
the
they called? We've
hyperspace
seen the
rings or something like
hyperspace
that.
rings, right?
Yeah,
The
Obi-Wan.
Jedi's use them
Hmm.
in their craft because their main vehicle wasn't capable of that, so they had to use these hyperspace rings to jump them.
Right.
This one is like a trillion times bigger
Yeah.
because it's meant to take Balin Skull and what's her name again?
Shin Hati, I believe.
Hati
Shin Hati.
and our man, I'm just as embarrassing that I forget the name of the witch.
Madam Web. No. Medusa McGillicuddy.
So our villains,
Yes, the bad guys.
yeah, they Hera's trying to take down these they've got this huge hyperspace engine, and they've got this huge hyperspace ring, and they're not trying to just get from planet to planet within this galaxy.
Right.
We're jumping galaxies. We're literally getting out of the galaxy that we have known for many decades,
Mm-hmm.
and we're leaving it. We're about to leave it for what I understand is the first time in live action we've even thought about leaving this galaxy. So they've got to
Right.
have a machine big enough to do that. And they basically just took that hyperspace ring and they just made it huge so they could go
Mm-hmm.
further. Um, that is to me not lazy design. That's just like, what
No.
would you do? This is what that thing is built for. Just build it bigger.
Yeah. Well, I
And
mean,
it's
it also
intimidating.
yeah, it also answers the question of why like regular hyperspace vehicles can't reach where Thrawn and Ezra are. If like, because that's the extra nerd in me that goes, well, if they can already cross the galaxy, then what's the difference?
Yeah, yeah.
And
Or
honestly,
what's stopping everyone from doing that? It's like,
yeah,
well,
yeah,
no,
like
you don't have any idea how big space is.
exactly. And like the fuel considerations have never really been a thing in Star Wars before. Like even this, where they have to go, well, we need to make sure that we can make it there, kind of thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, it's crazy. So, like I was saying at the top of the pod, this leads Ahsoka and Sabine straight into trouble, where they go face to face with Balin Skull and Shin Hati, and each one of them kind of pairs off. Where Sabine takes on Shin, and Ahsoka makes a beeline for Balin Skull, a beeline for Balin.
Well
Yeah,
done. Well done.
yeah, yeah. Uh, and ultimately they're attempting to stop them from acquiring the coordinates where they need to go and direct this giant halo ass ring to cross space and potentially time. So as the fight breaks out, like Ahsoka kind of waffles a little bit in between the light side and the dark side, would you say?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I don't know, that is I mean, look who her master was.
Right.
Like that's not out of character for Ahsoka.
Right. Like you set a bad example, Papa Anakin. Like your little
Right.
girl is making some bad choices. But speaking of bad choices, ultimately this leads to a situation where Sabine has the orb, or like the sphere of destiny, in her hand, and Ahsoka looks over at her and says, "Sabine, destroy it." And I can only think of you
Yeah.
and what you probably were like,
Yeah. Yeah.
Isildur, destroy it.
Destroy it. Isildur!
Isildur.
I was like, you had this one chance to stop everything from happening, but
And like, yeah, we feel like I've seen this before. Like, yeah, one small object's gonna completely reshape your world, and
yeah,
you decide no.
yeah, your personal conflict and emotion get in the way, and you decide, no, I need to, she makes the decision that if she destroys this, there's no chance of potentially no chance of ever finding Ezra.
Right, right.
Which is what this show has been building to this whole time, is
Hmm.
the finding Ezra and Thrawn, and she knows if she does this, that's it. She probably won't find him or see
Right,
him ever again. But now she's made a terrible, terrible choice.
right, right.
Right?
And even though there are parallels to the One Ring and Mount Doom, like unlike that situation where it felt like the ring's power had influenced Isildur and forced him almost to make a bad choice. This
Mhm.
seems completely of her own volition,
Yep.
and Sabine is making a conscious choice, not an influence choice. A tough choice to be certain. And again, these kind of moments is what I live for in these series, because if you reach that moment and you can see her doing both things, and whatever she does makes sense, I feel like you've been told a quality story.
Mhm. And I think there is a maybe a little bit of manipulation going on, but I agree that she's made the choice, right? Balin Skull has offered her kind of like a a compromise. Is like, if you let us get here, I'll let you go, essentially.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't think that I think if Balin Skull and Shinhati were just straight like Sith, red
Mm-hmm.
lightsaber,
Mm-hmm.
just no honor or respect or any of that thing, I think it would have maybe helped her decision, being like, you guys are psychotic, like, no, I'm
Right,
not doing that, like, this is
right,
no. But I think she sees, as someone who has at least some interest in the Jedi way, she sees that there might be some truth to what Balin is saying. It's like,
right.
you know what? I don't completely agree with you or whatever, but I don't know what your ultimate mission is, and we find a little bit of that out in episode 6. But I think she's got a bit of trust there because he was a Jedi,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I think there's a little bit of that where it's like, well, maybe he will uphold his end of the bargain, and you just don't know. So put a
Right.
little faith in that, I guess. So
Yeah. But you might be asking the question, well, where was Ahsoka? Where was Ahsoka, Easy?
don't no, I don't know. Where was Ahsoka?
She fell off the side of the cliff. She fell. She fell. And ended up somewhere in between worlds, is what I'm told.
Yes, this is exactly the world between worlds, right? So
Mm-hmm.
she falls. We think she's gone.
Right.
But it's revealed that she has entered into this place that is known and introduced in Rebels called the world between worlds. Now, the getting there
Mm-hmm.
is very different here, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the world between worlds in Rebels is literally a door that you
Right,
go
right.
through.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this, it seems like an in between sense, very, very similar to we've talked about Lord of the Rings already, uh,
Right.
but this feels very much like Gandalf's fall,
Mm-hmm.
right? He's not quite dead. He's in between, like what is going to happen with him? Is he going to die? Is he
Right.
going to live? He has this journey to take, and she ends up in the world between worlds. And oh boy,
Oh boy.
oh boy, the design here is like perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It's not identical to the animated version of it, but I think that's a good thing. I think they're doing their own thing. In the other one, there's a lot of doorways, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of, and those doorways lead directly to moments in time, whereas you don't really see that in this world between worlds.
Right.
But then that leads us into episode 5.
Where Ahsoka faces off with her former master? Or is it?
Right. That was the question, right? Everyone was like,
Right.
okay, what is this, right? So she
What is it?
falls.
Who are you?
What
What is
is
this?
this?
Why?
I when I tell you that I lost my mind. she she falls.
Right.
She You hear a voice,
Mm-hmm.
and that voice says, "Hello, Snips."
Mm-hmm.
I lost it. I legit, like, tearing up. So Snips is what Anakin called Ahsoka Tano,
Right.
because she was very snippy. So
Mm-hmm.
in the first season, we're introduced to Ahsoka Tano for the very first time, and she's very snippy. She
Mm-hmm.
goes, "Hey, don't get snippy with me." And then from then on out, that was his nickname for her. That was his nickname for her. Her nickname for him was Sky Guy,
Right.
which there was a part of me that really wanted her to call him that, but
Right.
I don't think it would have fit the moment,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we get. That's how episode 4 ends. Hello, Snips, and the reveal of Anakin Skywalker, and then
Right.
credits.
Yeah.
But then
Uh,
episode 5 picks right up.
dude,
Boy.
to begin with, I don't know why I didn't consider Hayden Christensen coming back again after he'd already shown up in Obi-Wan, but maybe that's the reason why this one surprised me more. I thought he had done his like one little post
Mm-hmm.
prequels Star Wars project and he was good, right? Like obviously Ahsoka has some serious history with his character, but whether or not he would come back and play the character again, I honestly didn't think so. It didn't even cross my mind. And now I look back and go, well, that's dumb. I probably should have seen this coming.
Well, no, I think that's a fair assessment to make, right? There's, I think if you look at like hours of content where Obi-Wan and Anakin are together, and if you count the minutes
Mm-hmm.
that Anakin and Obi-Wan are together in pop culture, and the minutes that Ahsoka and Anakin are together, the Ahsoka Anakin, it's much you have much more time with these characters.
Right.
But not everyone watched Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's interesting that, like, I know we've bashed on Obi-Wan a little bit. I'll continue to do that. I think that There is no Anakin without Ahsoka. And if you're gonna have a
Uh-huh.
show called Ahsoka, there is no Ahsoka without
Without
Anakin.
Anakin. Okay.
You knew that I knew that they had to explore a little bit of that, but I also am with you. I didn't know it was going to be to such a significant degree.
Right.
This episode is full on Anakin and Ahsoka show,
Mhm.
and it hit a lot harder than the Obi-Wan Darth Vader Anakin showdown.
Absolutely
Far
did.
more. There was more lessons being learned. I know,
Mhm.
the great line from from Obi-Wan was "I am what you made me" kind of thing, and it's like,
Mhm.
whoa, God Almighty, holy shit!
Yeah.
That certainly hits, but this one is very different because I think, like, the relationship between master and apprentice is
Mhm.
just far more fleshed out. We got to spend way more time with these people, and especially Ahsoka at such a, like, vulnerable age during Clone Wars, and then to see, like, who she's become now. Um, as a fan of Clone Wars, to
Mhm.
see Anakin in his Clone Wars armor,
Mhm.
to see them fighting in live action in literal episode, like taken right out of very significant episodes from the Clone Wars, and to see that play out in live action. I This episode 5, titled Shadow Warrior, might be my favorite hour of Star Wars ever made.
Yeah.
Like, so well done. I love this, like, Hayden Christensen renaissance that he's having, right?
Mhm.
Having endured so much hate from fans from the prequels, to have him come back and be so welcome. And I think that's a testament to, like, Filoni, who's just like,
Right.
I'm gonna make all those things that people nitpicked and didn't like about the prequels or whatever. I'm gonna make those moments so significant that you're gonna go back and
Yeah.
watch Revenge of the Sith and be like, "Oh shit." Like,
Mhm.
this just
Mhm.
feels like there's more weight to everything that's going on. And if you get a chance to go back and watch some of those scenes, that especially during the time of Order 66, to see, like, where Ahsoka is in that moment, because I know a lot of people are like,
Yeah.
if Ahsoka's so important, like, where the hell was she in Revenge of the Sith?
Right.
And it's like, watch these 2 episodes of Clone Wars, and you'll know exactly where she's at during that
Right.
time and why she wasn't there, but she's there.
Mhm.
Um, Hayden Christensen having another moment to really, really shine this time,
Right.
and universally, it seems like people are like, "Oh, hell yes." It's like,
Yeah.
"Yep, yep, this is what we've all wanted for so long." It's so awesome.
It's not only awesome for those reasons, but like I'd like to add that between Obi-Wan, his appearance in Obi-Wan and this show, now we've actually gotten him to see him in the Vader costume and be full on Vader. And we've gotten to see him in like proper Anakin form, I guess. I saw a
Yes.
really great tweet where they said that this version of Vader represented in Anakin form without the armor and whatnot. Well, not the Clone Wars armor, but like the Vader armor is the version of Vader that Obi-Wan robbed the Emperor of. Like when the Emperor wanted to have Vader,
Uh,
this is the version of Vader he wanted, but
yeah.
he didn't get. He had to settle for the half man, half machine version. And I love that idea of that this being that version of Vader. Furthermore, now Hayden Christensen has had the full-on redemption arc of where he gets to play a really great version of Anakin in live action and a really great version of Vader, even if the show that he was in for Vader wasn't great. And man,
Yeah, I did not even think about. Could you imagine Vader not all
yeah,
jacked
not all
up?
jacked up, just like that. Oh,
I've never even considered that.
yeah, and what a cool
That's
idea that
so true.
that is, right?
Yeah, that's
Um,
really interesting. I
mhm,
think I think the thing for episode 5 that's been the most, at least, tweeted or memed, or not even memed, because it's not funny. It's fucking brilliant.
yeah,
Um, is the shot in uh where they're on the planet fighting. Ahsoka's now portrayed in this episode, in most of this episode, as young Ahsoka, right? She's a
mhm,
child. And I
yeah,
think in animation, you forget that she's a kid,
right, 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 right,
and
right.
she's leading troopers into battle, and she's making mistakes because she's a kid and she's leading a lot of her team to death. Like, a lot of that plays out in Clone Wars, where but to then see an actual child in live action, it connects a little bit different, and you're
For
like,
sure, for sure.
this poor child who had to be thrown into this massive, massive galaxy-defining war, and I think when you see, Anakin Skywalker, that one scene that everyone's been talking about, he's leading, he's pushing forward on the front lines, and in the foreground, big explosion happens, and you get that flicker of Darth Vader's silhouette. I mean, that's got to be a all-time Star Wars moment.
Yeah.
Like, just an all-time Star Wars visual where you're just like, the first time, that's not a moon, that's a space station, right? You're like, holy shit.
Right.
It's Han and Carbonite. Holy shit. And then it's like this. You're like, whoa, oh my God. It's, of all things, right? We're not, it's no secret that we are loving this show.
Right.
But it's also beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, it's stunning to look at. Like, it's, yes, we're using all our modern technologies and it's in 85K and whatever the hell it is, and the CG looks incredible, but it's like stuff like this that's like, oh, there's still people behind this show who want to show you something you've never seen before.
Right.
And there's definitely a moment I want to talk about in regards to shit you've never seen before from the last episode 6.
Yes.
But that was one of those things where I was just like, oh my goodness, what a beautiful, like, Roger Deakins like shot that was.
Right.
So cool.
Right.
So very, very cool.
And to kind of wrap up on the Hayden Christensen of it all, I think this only further proves that, of course, he might have been a less mature actor at the time of the creation of the prequels. I mean, crying out loud, it was like 20 years ago somehow. But I really do feel like enough time has passed where we can openly criticize George Lucas and the team that was around him during the creation of the prequels. Now, I have my own problems with the prequels. I don't hate them. I actually quite like them despite their flaws. And that's what I'm talking about when it comes to, like, some of the flaws were reined back in the original trilogy because the people around him convinced him, like, that sounds dumb. Don't put that dialogue in the movie, George. And that's how, with the people around him, we're like, we just want more Star Wars and saying yes to everything. You end up with, I don't like sand. It's coarse, it's rough, and it gets everywhere. Like, who can make that sound good? Nobody, right? And so Hayden clearly is a very talented actor, and given the right circumstance and the right staging, he can deliver a great performance, as evidenced by what we've just seen here. So again, I can't be happier for him. Like, what a great way to turn around the whole fandom on it. It only took 20 years, but at least it happened.
Leave it to Dave freaking Filoni,
right?
Who has been, who's been crafting some of the most interesting things happening in Star Wars right now. For those people who just listened to Brendan say that and still are on the fence about Hayden's talent, I highly recommend you watch a movie called Shattered Glass, which happened post Star Wars. And I think a lot of people are just like, oh, it's that Star Wars kid. Like, I'm not watching that movie. He's a terrible actor. He's not. He's not a terrible actor. He's actually quite good. I think he just gets kind of shoehorned into that. So really heavy lessons being learned in this one. The legit fight that Ahsoka and Anakin have is just like littered with stuff from the show that makes those moments really heavy. One, we get to see Anakin doing some Anakin shit with his lightsaber, and it's like, yes, right? It's like, man, with if the prequels gave us anything, it's like the most insane lightsaber choreography in history. And some of that stuff comes back, and you're just like, swing that thing.
He's doing the thing. He's doing the thing.
Exactly. He's doing. That's like the Leonardo DiCaprio right there. Exactly. So that's heavy. He flips to the dark. A lot of people don't know that in Rebels season 2, I think the last episode of season 2 of Rebels, Ahsoka fights Darth Vader. And it's in that moment that Ahsoka knows who Darth Vader is. And that is like a revelation as big as I am your father. Um, and they're fighting in a Jedi temple, and Darth Vader is holding nothing back, right? He is fully prepared to kill his former apprentice, Ahsoka Tano, fully prepared to murder her. And the only reason that that fight ends is because our friend Ezra, who we're building to, was in the world between worlds at that time and pulled her out of that fight. Pulled her out,
Mhm.
which is interesting, because only one person walks out of that temple, and it's Darth Vader, because Ahsoka gets pulled out of time, which kind of then introduces time manipulation in Star Wars, which I don't know if we're going to get too much into that, but time will tell. But she knows in that moment Ezra takes Ahsoka out of that fight, that she was going to lose, and Anakin reminds her of that in this moment. Is like, you lost, like, you I was going to get you, kind of thing, and then
Mhm.
the fight just stopped because you disappeared, essentially.
Mhm.
When Ezra has Ahsoka in the world between worlds in that episode, he's saying, "Look what I just did. I just saved you. Now I'm gonna go save my master, Kanan Jarrus, Hera's Jedi husband, who they have a Jason Syndulla with. He died protecting us. I'm going to go get him now." And Ahsoka is the voice of reason in that moment, who says, "He died saving all of you. If you pull him from that moment, you'll all die." Right? And
Mhm.
also, I can't stay here. I have to go back there and finish this. So she goes back. She's like,
Mhm.
"You can't do that. Please don't do that, or you're going to screw everything up.
Mhm.
And then I got to go back here." So then to have that moment bookend here in live action, as we're going to finish this fight here,
Mhm.
um, is heavy shit, right?
Right.
And then she disarms him, and with his lightsaber that is now red at the beginning of the
Mhm.
fight, and the lessons that he's teaching her, it's his standard blue one, and now it's red. And she holds that up to him and turns it off and is like, "Yeah, I'm not going to do this."
Mhm.
And do you remember what he says? She's like, "I'm not going to fight
The
you."
I believe he says something to the effect of, "There is still hope for you yet."
Yeah. But he's like, he's heard that before.
Mhm.
Luke told him that. His son
Right,
said,
which
"I'm
which
not going to
is
fight you."
which is again interesting, of like, what is this version of Anakin really? Right? Is this the Force ghost of Anakin post Return of the Jedi, which is the time frame in which this show takes place?
Mm-hmm.
Is this just what Ahsoka brings to the world between worlds, and it's her own memories?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a version of Vader out of time? Honestly, I'm of the opinion that all interpretations are valid, because each one of them sounds correct to me, and that again is just amazing. Like, I love that part of the show where
Yes.
it's not a flaw, it's a feature.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be. It could be all of those things, and it
Yeah.
makes sense in all those iterations. But I love that little, like, that callback to, like, "Hey, master, I'm not gonna fight you." And it's like, and in that moment, the Anakin that's all knowing and has experienced all this time
Hmm.
has heard that before from his son, who was like, "I'm not, dude, I'm not gonna do this." And it's like,
Right.
oh, closure.
Hmm.
We've got closure here. Um, and then she's like, "Reborn,
As Gandalf the White, speaking of,
Ahsoka the
again,
White."
Lord of the Rings, I come back to you now at the turn of the
Turn of the
tide.
tide. Um, what a what a perfect Star Wars episode. And I think, I've been on this. I tell people a lot. My favorite Star Wars movie is Rogue One. My
Hmm.
favorite up to this point, my favorite Star Wars TV show has been Andor. They're
Right.
inextricably linked, obviously.
Right.
Go Diego Luna in representation as well.
Woo woo.
But I think lately I like those because it doesn't have to do with the Skywalkers. It doesn't have
Right.
to do with the magic and the mysticism of the Jedi and the politics and the bullshit and the this. And I think I'm just tired of it. And so that's why I've leaned so heavily on the non Jedi stuff, which is why I like Mandalorian as well. There's fewer Jedis there. But this is like, in spite of all the Jedi and even more mysticism than I think we have ever been introduced to, actual magic and witchcraft and stuff. I'm like, here we go. I was like, I am back into like the whole giant galaxy defining, it's magic.
Yeah, I mean, like, to that same
It's
effect.
incredible.
Yeah, it's not just that it feels big again. It also kind of returns some of the um mystique, maybe is the right word, for even the Jedi, the way that
Yeah.
Balin's skull reflects on it in episode 6. Whereas like all of the Skywalker focused stuff of the primary movie episodes is about how the Jedi fell, how they were redeemed, and what they do in the future, basically, when Rey kind of takes over. And at no point you really get like Jedi's regarded in a lot of reverence. They're idiots in the prequels where they let some guy take over. They basically don't exist, and they're trying to like make a comeback in the original trilogy. And then you get this inheritor that is, trying to piece together the broken pieces of the Jedi in the sequel trilogy. And it's like, can we just, have some reverence for what they were, or like, can we see them in their prime, which I think we might be getting in the old Republic movie that will be coming out potentially.
Oh yeah.
But
That's true.
this
I'm excited
show,
about that.
in just again a short amount of time, restores a lot of what I remember liking about the Jedi in the first place.
Yes,
It's why,
that's the point I was trying to make. This
yeah,
is why I fell in love with Star Wars. This stuff right here.
yeah. I like the reason why you want to swing the lightsaber around is not because just you saw somebody do a cool move. It's like, oh, being a Jedi sounds awesome. Like you get these powers, you get to protect people, you feel like a damn superhero monk kind of thing. Like
Right,
that
yeah.
sounds awesome. Show me that stuff. And they finally kind of are,
Yeah.
where it's untainted, almost
I like the
unspoiled.
I like the point you made about the reverence of it, because Balin Skull, he's a mystery right now. We're still not quite sure what his angle is. Again, the symbolism that their lightsabers are not red, they're orange, so it's kind of like an in between. We're not quite evil Sith, but we're definitely not Jedi anymore, even though we have that knowledge base and skill set. But even he's like, do you miss, I think he's asked, like, do you miss being a Jedi? Or something to that effect. Then he says, I miss the idea that
Right.
like what we were supposed to be.
Right.
And that's super interesting. Like, you would never hear a Sith say that stuff. So
Right.
you're just like, who is this guy? Like, this is so interesting. And I think we're also getting to a point where him and his apprentice Shinhati may be at odds as well. There's some conflicting, she's maybe not sure
Yeah.
she's not really sure what, like, what's the angle here, Master? Like, what are we doing here?
I feel like they are sowing the seeds. Like, I don't want to be right about this, but if she ends up betraying him in the end, I'm gonna be like, I knew it.
Right.
I felt like it was
This is the one
coming.
thing I could see coming.
Yeah, and it's just like, not that it will be bad. It's more like it feels bad in terms of the story. Like this is
Yeah.
honestly like a page turner of a book of
It
freaking
is.
a show.
I'm
Because
like,
like, exactly, yeah.
oh my God. Yeah, exactly. It's like, sometimes you're watching a show and you want to check the time for two. You check the time for two reasons. One, how much longer is this?
Yeah.
And then the second reason is, how much longer is this? And then you're like, don't look at the time, because what if there's only 10 minutes left? I'm gonna be
Right.
so depressed.
Right.
This is that show. I'm like, how much? No, don't look. Just let it happen. Just let it happen.
Which is actually a good segue to episode 6, because I remember in the break between 5 and 6, we both already wanted to talk more about the show, and we were making like little side bets of like, okay, Thrawn and Ezra next episode, right?
And I was wrong,
right?
because you said we're getting Thrawn and Ezra, and I was like, I don't think so. I think they're gonna make us. They're gonna make us wait. And episode 6 was like, you're wrong, Zeke. You're wrong.
Yeah. So Thrawn full on shows up, and Holy shit, what an entrance.
What an
Like,
entrance.
I feel like I reference it way too much, but as a fan of wrestling, I appreciate a really flamboyant, well choreographed entrance that says so much about the character. So, like, all right, gotta set the scene here. It's John Cena. No, it's Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Mhm.
Freaking this guy rolls in as we think Sabine is finally tapping into the Force. We hear a rumble. We see things start to shake. We're like, is she actually tapping into the Force for the first time? Even she thinks it in the context of the show, but then we realize no, it's not that. It's an approaching Death Star. Or not Death Star, bull. Star Destroyer.
Sorry to start.
My goodness, my nerd cred just -2.
So we're now in Balin Skull, Shin Hati, Morgan Elsbeth, and now their prisoner Sabine Wren are now.
And suddenly you know all of their names.
That's right, Morgan Elsbeth. This is how good this episode is. It just came rushing back to me. They're in a different galaxy. Okay, right.
Mhm.
We'll touch base on what Ahsoka is up to in this moment,
Right.
because there's some dialogue in that moment that's
Yeah.
holy smokes. But
Okay.
they're in a different galaxy now, a
Mhm.
galaxy we have never been to before. um it's where our Purgil, our space whales, go to
Mhm.
die. The ring
Mhm.
around the planet is a graveyard of these whales because it is the
Mhm.
last point of their journey from galaxy to galaxy. The people are going to be just like researching Purgle for the next 5 years and creating stories just on them because they're amazing. So
Mhm.
they end up here. This is the Dathomir. The witches of Dathomir are. So there's already people on this planet. This is where we find Thrawn, where
Mhm.
Thrawn has been in exile with these ladies, these witches. Um, and he shows okay in Rise of Skywalker.
Mhm. Mhm.
How many Star Destroyers in that last third of the movie?
Freaking
Thousands.
all of them. All
Every
of them.
single one
Yeah.
is there in that scene
Mhm.
where Palpatine's bringing back the whatevers. Thousands of them.
Right.
Has one ever been this terrifying?
Not since the opening of 1977 Star Wars, I think.
100%, right? That you were just like, whoa, holy smokes.
Mhm.
So Thrawn shows up in the Chimera, which, come on, it's the greatest name of any of these ships.
Right.
That is a ship that he's always had, Chimera.
Mhm.
It is painted on the underbelly. This is from previous stuff.
Mhm.
The Chiss ascendancy sigil, essentially. Grand Admiral Thrawn, or his real name is Mithran Uodo, just so you know that.
Just
He
filing it in
is
there.
from a race called the Chiss, blue
Right.
skinned, red eyes, which is already off putting.
Mhm.
Um, but if it seems weird that this Chiss is in a, you know, full Empire suit, it's because the Empire didn't take kindly to anyone but humans,
Mhm.
which set Thrawn apart, right? Thrawn
Right.
is the only person to ever rise to those ranks that was not human. But that's
Mhm.
because he is a master tactician. He
Mhm.
is a genius when it comes to warfare and culture and all this stuff. And I've said this many times before. Thrawn is my favorite Star Wars character of all time. Right? What Dave Filoni, what Timothy Zahn did with the 3 trilogies he's done, some canon, some not. Um, and then what Dave Filoni, how he used him in Rebels is like, how could you not think that this guy is one of the absolute most amazing Star Wars creations ever? So I was psyched for his entrance, and I knew it was going to be dope as shit, right?
Right.
I was not expecting this. Like,
Mhm.
that one single Star Destroyer is scary, very
Right.
much like how we knew who Darth Vader was when he showed up in Rogue One, but he's
Mhm.
the most terrifying he's ever been in that one little moment in Rogue One. This
Mhm.
felt similar of an entrance. We saw Star Destroyer do some shit we've never seen it do before. It's just like What an entrance.
What an entrance. My God.
And it seems like he's not been, he's not the kind of guy that sit around in exile and be like, there's nothing really to do here. No, he's got all the folks that were on the Chimera when it zoomed across galaxies.
Right.
They're ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
He's got stormtroopers who, I don't know, it feels like a cult at this point,
Yeah.
right? They look at him like a cult leader. They're all patched together. They're all jacked up. Maybe with a little black magic going on here from these witches.
Mm-hmm.
And this entrance is an all-timer.
Yeah. The stormtroopers chant his name as he slowly walks through their ranks. He approaches with this air of importance that, just again from the theatrics of it, of slowly bringing him in and not like overdoing it. And then when he finally does speak, he doesn't overdo it. He commands your attention, or demands your attention even, without having to shout or like.
You're never, let me tell you this right now, you're never going to hear Mithran Odo raise his voice.
To speak softly and carry a big
stick.
Right? Like, that's this guy to a T. Like, seeing him in action finally, it was one of those moments that like actually delivered on the hype. And as the guy who has not seen all of Rebels or Clone Wars and has not read the Timothy Zahn novels as you have, hearing how much everybody, not just you, builds this character up as like peak Star Wars that hasn't yet entered Star Wars live action. Rarely does a moment like that live up to your expectations. Like, how could it? And then this guy walks into the frame and you're just like, I get it. I totally get it. This guy is awesome. Like, I described him as like a mixture between the best parts of Grand Moff Tarkin and the menace of Vader in A New Hope. Like, their combined forces, you put them together, you get this blue-faced weirdo who's just like pleasant to be around and actually seems to honor his word and wants you to have a good time. Really, I love this character. Like, this guy's great.
He is cool, calculated, and that's why he's scary. He's never going to raise his voice. He's always 50 steps ahead of you. And the first lines he utters in this episode are, I'm gonna do it in my Thrawn, because I'm gonna tell you, when I read these books, when I read the Timothy Zahn books, I am full on doing the voice from both the audiobook versions, but mostly from Lars Mikkelsen here, who plays this character.
Does Lars Mikkelsen do the audiobook too?
He does not, but he did the voice. He provided the voice in Rebels, so there's a little bit of nice continuity there. Okay. First lines of Thrawn in my best Thrawn. What was first just a dream has just become a frightening reality for those who oppose us. Okay, break that down a little bit. What was first just a dream to us has now just become a frightening reality to those who oppose us. And he says it with so much confidence and calm. You're just like, oh, we are so fucked, because Thrawn's about to show back up and do his Thrawn stuff. So he's like, yeah, can we talk about real quick the sound design in this whole moment? Right. It's absolutely brilliant. Mixed with Kevin Kiner, who did Clone Wars music. It's like, the Joker has his own theme in The Dark Knight. Thrawn has his own theme.
Right.
And it's very similar, right? It's like kind of like guttural, like somebody just like punched a guitar string. But then you're talking about the chants, and I could not, like, I had to watch that scene like 5 times to be like, they're not chanting all at once.
Nope.
It's like little pockets of like Thrawn, and you're just like, oh my god! It, like, my surround sound, I was like, what is happening here right now? And it's a very uncomfortable, but like, it's that like cool, calm, collected Thrawn that he's like, his cadence is slow. He's thinking about he wastes nothing, right? He knows exactly what he's going to say, and he says it. And then he knows, he knows of Morgan Elsbeth and the Dark Sisters, but he's meeting our friends Balin Skull and Shin Hati for the first time. Um, and Balin introduces himself as Balin Skull, and our boy Thrawn knows exactly who he is.
General Balin Skull of the
Of the
Jedi
Jedi
Order.
Order. Balin Skull says, I left the Jedi Order some time ago. And Thrawn responds, "You would not be the
Not be the
first.
first. Yep. Yep.
Um,
Whoa. Whoa.
you would not be the first." Now, in this moment, I think some people are thinking they're talking about Ahsoka, right?
Sure,
Who
sure, sure.
was kicked out of the Jedi Order, falsely accused of doing something. They ask her back, and she says, "No, I'm good."
Mhm.
So I think some people think, "Oh, Clone Wars watchers, he's talking about Ahsoka who left the Jedi Order." I think Dave Filoni is talking about Anakin
Hmm.
because our boy Thrawn has a lot of history with Anakin
Mhm.
Skywalker. He knew him as a Jedi. He spent a lot of time with him in Batu, Black Spire kind of places.
Mhm.
Um, but more so than that, in the second Timothy Zahn trilogy, um, the first one is called Thrawn, second one's called Alliances, and the third
Mhm.
book is called Treason. He knows Darth Vader, right? He spent time after Anakin becomes Darth Vader. Thrawn then goes kind of like on this mission with Darth Vader, and Thrawn knows it's Anakin Skywalker.
Right.
He's like maybe one of the only people because Thrawn studies everything, right? He knows how people move, and he discovers that this is Anakin because of the way he carries himself, the way he fights, the way he this, the way he that. And Thrawn's like trolling Darth Vader during these missions.
Yeah.
He's like, "Yes, I used to know a Jedi." Like, and Darth Vader's like, I don't know what you're talking about." And Thrawn's like, yes, hey, 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 I know who you are. We've met each other before." That is Thrawn. That is the
Right.
capabilities of Grand Admiral Thrawn, and he is as my favorite character. And I've never seen him in live action. This entrance is perfect, and he's just as scary and formidable in live action as he ever was in the books and in Rebels.
Yeah, and he's like unlike any other antagonist or like straight up villain that the Star Wars galaxy has ever presented to us. I like quickly cataloging in my head. I was like, okay, so you've got somebody like Darth Maul, right? Who doesn't say hardly a word and speaks mostly in action. You got like Count Dooku, who, yeah, used to be part of the Jedi Order, but like turns straight evil for the Sith. And we
Mm-hmm.
don't know why. And who could care what Count Dooku did? Right? And then of course, yeah, Vader and the Emperor, who like are iconic, but like they stand more like pillars of the Star Wars galaxy, I would say, right? Where they're like one of the constants that are always there. So what an interesting take on villainy, even having somebody that you want to root for, but you're like, wait a minute, no, he's the bad guy. I don't want him to succeed. But at the same time, maybe I'm gonna enlist. Those stormtrooper outfits look pretty dope.
Hey,
Like,
these guys are crazy.
because listen, his right hand man, as it were, is a gold faced stormtrooper dude named Enoch, who
Enoch.
immediately I thought this is what Captain Phasma wanted to be, and Phasma wishes she could be
Yeah,
as cool as this guy is.
right. Man, Gwendolyn Christie, I think you were done dirty. We should have
Dude,
gotten
it
way
has
more out of
nothing
Captain
to do with
Phasma.
the actress,
Yeah,
nothing to do with
nothing.
her whatsoever. Just the character of Captain Phasma can like kiss his boots because
In
this
just a
guy,
short moment, you're like, I want to know everything about Enoch. I
yeah,
want
I
to know
want to know everything
everything
about him.
about
I
him.
want that helmet. I want to like find out why and how he became in Thrawn's circle. I
And
want you.
what an interesting reveal, right? Because you're only seeing all the normal stormtrooper helmets that we've seen and we know, and they're ingrained in our minds.
Mhm.
But our first, he's got his back turned to us and then looks right at camera, and you're like, well, that's new.
Yep,
Never
never
seen
seen
that
that
before.
before.
Yeah, I'm into it. I want to know everything about Enoch.
Dude hands Sabine her blasters, her lightsaber, basically hits the horse on the back of the ass and goes, "Go enjoy death." And I'm like, "Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay." So that was awesome.
Yeah. But that they're, okay, they have Sabine as their prisoner, right? We all know that if they let her go, she's gonna lead them to Ezra. But Thrawn eventually essentially makes that decision because he is honoring the deal that Balin made with Sabine. And
Right.
that is Thrawn's one of many of Thrawn's like skill sets
Mhm.
is the amount of like reverence and respect for people and their cultures and all that stuff has allowed him to figure out who his enemies are, right? There's an incredible episode of Rebels where he's just looking at pieces of art in people's homes and he realizes, I know where I'm at and I know who you are. Just by
Mm.
looking on art on the wall or a trinket in a little baby's room or something, because he studies his enemies, right?
Okay. So then answer me this. When Balin says he's got this deal with Sabine, and the reason he brought Sabine to Thrawn is because she may yet be of use to them. Um, Thrawn says, "Quite right, you are. She could prove to be useful." Okay, so if Thrawn wants to kill her and he doesn't do it in the moment, if Thrawn wants her to die and he's okay with just leaving her, what use could she serve to his goal? He's just piecing out of there. What what do you think he's cooking up?
I think it's nothing that we have even thought of yet.
But that's what okay, what could it be? Throw a wild theory out there. Tell me what you
Oh,
think, because I have
yeah. See,
no idea.
because when he says no, I'm gonna honor that thing. That's just kind of Thrawn's way of like, nope,
Sure,
I
and
made you a deal. We're
I
gonna
get
do that.
that. I get that.
I think there's a part of me that with that Thrawn thinks that all these people now, except for maybe Ahsoka, are
Hmm.
inconsequential.
Hmm.
It's like um I no longer need any of you people,
Hmm.
right? Maybe the purpose Sabine serves it has nothing to do with Ezra. Maybe it
Hmm.
has to do with Balin. Maybe homeboy Thrawn doesn't trust these once Jedis, right?
Hmm.
I think maybe
Hmm.
his sights are more set on what can I use you for? I'm not so interested in them. Now, granted, I think maybe that's wrong because of the history that they have in Rebels. They will be consequential to each other,
Hmm.
but I wouldn't even think to know like how because that seems too on the nose. That seems too we figured that out,
Hmm.
right? They're gonna use her to get to Ezra. They're gonna go get him. Blah 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 blah. But Thrawn doesn't move a muscle to do any of that.
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
that's not what he does, right? You do this. His chess pieces are moving like
Hmm.
crazy, and I think that we have yet to see even a glimpse of what his actual plan could be.
Is it kind of like one of those YouTube videos or TikToks where the painter is like painting something all crazy like and it's upside down and he
Yes,
flips it and you're
yes,
like,
that's Thrawn.
okay, so
That's
we're
Thrawn.
gonna we're gonna get a moment like that, hopefully at the end of the series, perhaps in the Thrawn movie that Filoni is probably going to be doing. So I just assume that Thrawn is not going to like die or lose even at the end of this show. I think he's going to continue on as like a menace or like a force that's out there, I guess.
We've got 2 episodes left in this season, right?
Hmm.
And I think fans of Thrawn and even people who are really learning Thrawn for the first time, and it just warms my heart that you feel like, oh, this is a new class of villain that we
Hmm.
have really not seen in live action before, right? If
Hmm.
if you read the books or listen to the books, it's like a manual of like
Hmm.
how to win like it's like the art of war by Thrawn. um
How I accidentally conquered the universe by Grand Admiral Thrawn.
yeah, and I am hoping that in these last 2 episodes, they're gonna set up the mastermind that he is
Hmm.
in that sort of like outsmarting and figuring those things out. And maybe not, but I'm hoping that if let's say they decide, hey, we got another season in us before the movie peaks, then we will definitely see Thrawn at work.
Right.
And there's nothing more that I love than like Thrawn doing work. Like, and you're right, he's not a sympathetic villain, right? Like there's a million, like we watch Endgame and you're like, what Thanos is fighting for kind of makes sense. You can kind of like, I understand why he wants to do this. And there are some people who are like, I'm kind of with him, right? He's not that. He is brutal.
Right.
But he's brutal in a different, like, non-physical way that makes him scarier. Like in Andor, the Empire is the scariest they've ever been in Andor. Because you can see it. You can see all the way down to like the regular people there. And it's like, oh God, this is terrible. He's that, like, at that level for a single human person or a chiss person.
Right.
So when he gets cooking, right, he's doing things against the people that you're supposed to be rooting for, right? The rebels and the good people. But you're smitten with his ability that you're just like, hey, bro, you do you. You do you.
Yeah, let's see where this goes.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, so let's say theoretically they do a Mandalorian season 4. Should Thrawn be even incorporated into that at all in order to kind of sow the seeds of this is the show spanning villain, or like the thing that's building up to it? Because the thought crossed my mind and I was just like, maybe? Well,
I think
what's Din Djarin gonna do?
yeah, I kind of think that they could be like, okay, this is the defining Filoni verse finale. The Filoni finale is that going to be that movie where it's taking all his creations, right? The Mandalorian show, Rebels, Clone Wars, bringing Thrawn back from being decanonized by Disney. It's like, yeah, watch this. Boom, he's canon again. I think Dave Filoni has an amazing track record of taking things that were decanonized and being like, nope, your book is good again. Okay, here we go. So I think they could, right?
Yeah.
Because what's our chick's name from Mandalorian? Katie Sackhoff?
Bo-Katan Kryze?
Bo-Katan Kryze is in Rebels and Clone Wars, and so
Right.
she's got connections there. And I think maybe we were at the beginning, the first episode we talked about is, could this all culminate in like a Mando Rebels fight against Thrawn? Yeah, sure. If the Mandalorians are like back in full power again, for sure they would certainly be helpful in this battle before to stop. Now we know that the First Order ends up coming out of all of this anyways.
Right.
But I think they could do a little bit of overlap is if Thrawn pops back into our galaxy and is like, we're back, mofos.
Surprise.
Everyone's gonna have the same problem. It's like, uh-oh, we need to maybe all collectively get on the same page and stop this dude.
That would be really cool.
I would love to see one more season of this.
Yeah, same.
There's just, Ezra's back at peak Jedi performance because homeboy shave. Let's get to work. We got places to go. Sabine is really she has made questionable decision after questionable decision, right? She chose to keep the thing and not destroy it.
Yeah.
We find Ezra. It's a big moment, man. So we're spending a lot of time talking about Thrawn because he packs a wallop.
Right.
But really, our heroes are trying to find Ezra, and we do. And that's a really touching, wonderful moment. But when she's like, hey, the plan worked, right? Like, let's go home. And she's like, why don't we just not talk about that right now? And it's like, Sabine, tell this man what's really happening. And we may need to GTFO because if I'm smart, we need to go.
Yeah, and like, I don't know if I've watched just too much Game of Thrones or something, but like, I had this really sinking feeling as happy as it got. I was like, okay, who's gonna come out and stab him? He's a major character from a big show. He just showed up for the first time. How many episodes?
Sean Bean him. Don't Sean Bean him.
Dude, I totally thought he was gonna get beamed. Like,
yeah.
Oof.
Yeah. And one interesting note, Rebels our boy Ezra does not know that Ahsoka is alive.
I'm not ruling it out, by the way. Him dying, not
Oh,
ruling it out.
me
I
neither.
feel
No,
I feel like you
he
built
could
up
do
all
it.
this. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, we have to find this kid. This kid is the whole key to everything. This is we were gonna cross the galaxy for this kid. Guess it didn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. So the
Oh
last
man.
time Ezra sees Ahsoka, to my
Hmm.
knowledge, is in the world between worlds where she's like, I gotta go back.
Hmm.
And so and she doesn't make it out of that temple. He doesn't, I don't believe that Ezra knows that Ahsoka is even alive, and now she's coming for him. Can we talk about what hyperspace looks like when it's going from galaxy to galaxy?
Dude, like, can we even mention that, like, the Joseph Campbellism of it all is like permeating through, because like I could have sworn one of the stages of the hero's journey is the belly of the whale, and they literally board a belly of a whale and go across the galaxy. Like, I just thought, man, that's pretty on the nose, but well played, Dave Filoni. Well
Yeah.
played.
Ahsoka Tano's in high spirits. They're on their way in the belly of a Purgle. She's hanging
Mhm.
out with Hu Yang. Who Yang? Um, who's
I see what you did
yeah, you
there.
see what they did there? He's got a lot of knowledge, right? He was at the Jedi Temple and
Mhm.
trained all these people in the history of the galaxy, parts 1, 2, and 3. Hey, tell me
Right.
about this. And how does he start that story in a galaxy a long time ago in a
In a
galaxy
galaxy
far,
far,
far
far
away?
away, which has never been uttered in any Star Wars. It's only ever been text. So, does that suggest to you that almost the entirety of Star Wars is essentially a droid or something telling a story like Hu Yang is doing? Because that's how I took it.
If not that, it's these are part of that story, right?
Yeah.
It means that someone along the line has told the story of A New Hope and
Right.
Return of the Jedi. And
Right.
and it's like he opens it with that. I'm like, these are stories that are being told throughout the time.
Hmm.
He said that, and I was like, God damn, Dave Filoni, you're a genius. This is incredible, incredible stuff.
It's just like, again, what's the smartest, coolest decision we can make? I feel like we've said something like that before.
Mm-hmm.
And consistently approaching every question, every like mystery of it, and only breeds more questions or more curiosity, is like the mark of a great storyteller. And I do feel like we're seeing that be delivered. I criticized George Lucas earlier, but like, he's an ideas man to me. He's got some great ideas. He's got, like, he fully fleshes it out, but he's not as great at telling the story. Like, again, I
Mm-hmm.
hate to harp on him a little bit, but he kind of felt like a little kid telling a story. You ever have a little kid who's just get to the point? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
well, and then there were these
uh-huh,
Jedi,
uh-huh. And Obi Kenobi
and yeah,
and the bad guy.
and their swords, they were made of light, and they fought each other, and I was just like, George, I get it, get to the point. What are
Yeah.
you trying to say to me? And that's not the case here. It feels like an adult is telling me a story,
Yes.
and thank you for explaining this in a way that makes sense. That's what's so satisfying about this. Again, we wouldn't have Star Wars without George Lucas, so I
100%.
still appreciate what he did and what he brought into being. But my goodness, this is like,
This
uh
era of Star Wars is just so well done right now.
yeah. So, oh, 2 more episodes to go. Cannot wait to wrap this up and revisit this one last time and see where it ends up.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's a lot. I don't know what the runtime of those ones are. My selfish heart wants them to be feature length
Right,
episodes.
right.
I
Can
know
can
we
they be
won't.
2 hours each, please?
I know they won't be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that. So listen, we'll do our best to put out another episode in between, so this is just not
Right,
the Ahsoka show.
right.
But we will absolutely be back here for like a post show recap of the whole series. So
Absolutely,
yep.
absolutely. So, with that, I think that's going to do it for this week's episode. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
And may the force be with you.
And you can also find us on most major platforms on Spotify and
Yeah, I just forgot to say
YouTube. I think we're on MySpace and Friendster.
Tumblr, Live Journal.
Exactly. I haven't checked out Threads yet. Maybe we'll be on Threads eventually.
It's possible.
But yeah. Thanks for tuning in, and like the man said, may the force be with you.